aufgebaut. Machst du mal die Tür zu? Hello.
那个真的，哎，我有个电话。
Hey. Hey.
Irene from Westbund. And
Hi. I'm Esther.
Hi.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very clear. And
Okay. Very good.
It's coming soon. Oh,
okay. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to see you.
See you.
Hi, Esther. That's a long time ago.
Yes. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Nice to meet you here.
Yes.
Wonderful. We're all here. This is great.
Yeah. Where are you all speaking from?
I'm in Berlin.
Yeah. In the gallery.
No, it's actually my office at home.
Oh, wow.
We had an opening yesterday, and yeah, I'm working from home today.
Okay.
The new thing, right? Now we think it's cool to work from home.
Yeah.
So just Tihai, just in terms of how it works, is the translation simultaneous, or do we need to leave breaks?
let me check with the translator. And I think Tim will join us later.
Okay.
How does the fair look?
Everything is fine now. And
you happy? I mean, in the situation.
Yeah.
And it opens to the public on the 11th, right?
Yes.
So not yet installed then?
Not yet.
No.
We just finished the wall.
I so much miss not being there. I grew to so used to being this season in Shanghai, which is absolutely wonderful. So I hope I'm going to be there next year.
We all do.
Yeah. Do you want to run through quickly the kind of things we might discuss?
Yes, please.
So I thought obviously the title is about moving within restrictions and crossing boundaries. And I think we could start with how the kind of various lockdowns have affected what you do and how you've had to adapt as galleries to deal with them. And I think moving more specifically to Westbund, I think the move to online art fairs, does that change how you select works? How do you select works for it? To what extent it's a conversation with the artists and or the audiences, I think would be interesting to discuss. Whether you make different choices because it's online. Are you both you're showing different works in the actual fair?
I'm not participating in the actual fair.
Okay.
We are only
Neither
online.
Okay.
Fair.
Well, that solves that one then.
But we decided to install it in the show in the Hong Kong gallery. So we installed the works in physically. So those who can make it to Hong Kong or are local to Hong Kong at least can see it there.
Yeah. Good. So I thought we could talk about how does it change the way you communicate with people and how you keep in touch with audiences or markets? And also, I guess, obviously, how you keep in touch with artists who are presumably producing work that you may or may not actually see in these times. And I think also...
Will you moderate it in certain way, Mark, that you will say, like, now we're... Esther, can you reply to this? Boris, can you reply to that?
Yeah, and I think with the nature of Zoom things, it's better if we... I guess it'll be mainly one person speaking at a time, and then we can go around the group, because otherwise it quickly descends into confusion, particularly if the screens keep flashing between different people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just going around as a group, and I think specifically it would be good to talk about how the contact with China works and the Chinese audiences, particularly now. I guess when museum shows is also curtailed, and then how you would introduce new artists. So does that change? Do you not want to do that anymore? Because I guess Westbund's always been a fair that's had introduced new art to the Chinese market, and has that changed given the current conditions? Is that harder to do? How do audiences find out about the artists? This kind of thing as well, I think would be interesting. And I guess keeping in touch with what's going on in China too is tricky. So I'm working a lot with Leap, the Chinese magazine at the moment. And it's a very odd experience because maybe until June, I felt like I was in touch. So I was there in December. Then after that, I'm suddenly relying on what other people tell me.
And
a lot more.
You're not so sure about the source.
Well, I'm naturally suspicious. I'm sure about the source, but it's different when you experience things for yourself. And I guess also in the context of fairs, it's obviously a communal event, and you can see what everyone else is doing as well as what you're doing. And you're part of a bigger discussion in that sense. And I wonder how that changes how you think about these events now.
Personally, I don't think the fairs will ever be back like what they used to be. It's going to be a very different model where regionality will be much more important.
Yeah.
I don't think.
And I guess the question is, what does that mean for galleries in Berlin, London, New York, Antwerp, and Hong Kong?
We're definitely discovering our home market.
Yeah.
I mean, long time very, very neglected. So that's certainly for us here a very positive aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, my
same
year
for
was,
me actually.
Yeah, I've been discovering how much I like watching videos.
I didn't know I like to produce them. I still don't really like to produce them, but we became like I don't know, a production house.
So yeah, I think much of it will be about how the relationships with the artist changes, and how the relationships with different markets and audiences changes, and how we're adapting to an online situation, a digital situation, and what's lost and what's gained within that. And I guess it relates to the social aspects of art too.
But I think that I believe for Esther as well, but for me for sure also, it's like the experience of art is still a very primary necessity to why we are involved in the arts, and not all of that can be lived online.
Yeah.
So that's why it's difficult to make new experiences online.
Yes.
If you know the work, if you know the artist, you can experience much more easy if it's a good quality work by the artist or not.
Yeah.
If you are if you've never seen the work, it's very complicated.
Yeah, I think those would be good things to talk about in terms of the audience in China. Maybe with a slightly positive spin.
Yeah.
Were there any particular things you wanted to talk about?
not for me, no.
Then Tihai, will someone from Westbund introduce the whole talk in Chinese, or will I be doing that in English?
No, I think Ms. Zhou will not participate later. And,
Sorry?
I mean, Mr. Zhou, you will not participate later.
Yeah.
So Mark, you will control the whole meeting.
Okay.
Hi, Tim. I think Tim is already joining us.
There's a call, but he's muted.
Yeah.
Changing his background.
So we don't have any technically problems so far. Everything is
Okay.
very cool. So we may come back later on 20 minutes later.
Okay. One last question. Is there going to be any questions or from outside the group, or is it just us talking to each other?
Oh no, just you.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so see you later. Oh, Tim.
Good morning.
Hi, morning.
Good morning, Esther.
Good morning, Tim.
Boris and Mark.
Hi.
Hi, Tim.
Terrible rain shower here.
Yeah, it looks horrible out there.
Mark, where are you?
I'm in London.
Ah.
Yeah, just back. Yeah, we just had a quick run through. I'm still not sure. Do we need to leave gaps for Chinese translation, or is it going to be happening as we talk?
It's just happening at the same time, so you don't need to leave a gap.
Great, much better. Excellent. Yeah, I was just saying to the others that we'd maybe talk about how the lockdown and the various restrictions and lack of travel have affected the way your galleries operate, about staying in touch with artists and with audiences, I mean, specifically in the end in China, and how that affects the choices you've made, I guess, in a way for the online viewing spaces, and how you keep in touch with new art developments and what's gained and lost by the move to digital.
Okay.
So I think those would be the general topics.
All right. And how do you do it? Do you just ask everybody a question and then it gets translated? What's happening?
Apparently it's being translated simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
So we don't need to leave any gaps. It can just be a normal conversation. I think with Zoom, it's easier to go around one by one. So I'll direct who to start and then just do the same question through each of you. And then if there's kind of opposing views, we can start with those. But then I think I'll just go around the group as a whole. I think it's easier. Otherwise, you have this screen sort of flashing with different faces all the time.
Yeah, okay.
And I think for the translators, it will be more difficult. I guess as usual, we have to sort of speak relatively slowly and clearly, so the translators will get it.
And will there be a Q&A at the end?
No, apparently. Just us. Lengthy answers, and I'm joking.
How long is it to last?
I think it's scheduled for 45.
Okay.
But I guess if you reach a natural conclusion, we'll reach a natural conclusion.
Oh, we all say the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'll toss some curveballs in.
Where have you been traveling from? You say you're just back to London.
I was in Italy for a bit.
Right.
Working on a show for next year there. And then I guess the rest of the time I've been holed up in a bunker working on another exhibition in China.
Right.
And some projects with Leap as well as ArtReview.
But you've not been in Asia in the last month?
No. No, have you?
No. I hardly left Germany.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been so long in one spot since 30 years or something. So at least the way it feels.
Me neither. And I also find it's like, I don't know London as well as I thought I did now that I have to stay here.
But Esther, have you taken any pleasure in not traveling so much?
I did. For a while, I really thought, wow, this is great. Slowly, I'm getting a bit like I would love to. I'm starting to miss it.
Yeah.
Start to have dreams about boarding planes and things like that. Getting really weird.
yeah, I think also for me, just not knowing what's going on really, or at least having to rely on other people to tell me.
You mean here?
No, well, I mean here, there's all the government confusion, but also in China, in Asia. So I would say like a third of the day now is just talking to people there in Southeast Asia and China, and taking on weird video tours of exhibitions and studios.
I think it'd be a bit dark here.
So Tihai was saying we could just take a break and come back in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Suits everyone.
Good. Perfect.
I'll just leave the line open.
Okay. Safety first. Okay. We'll see you in a little bit.
Esther, how does Berlin feel? Wait, I can't hear you.
I think you're on mute.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Berlin has been so far really good. We are now getting back to a semi-lockdown, but we can still keep the gallery open.
Right.
But the museums and the exhibitions will be, public spaces will be closed.
But you don't have to close the gallery.
No, we basically, we also never had to close our offices.
我们办公室也不用关，画廊也不用关，
Never been in a real kind of
所以不是说那种真正的很严重的封锁啦。
to close the exhibition space we have. We're in two separate buildings. The galleries and the sales people are in one building, and then we have the rest of it in the building just next to it. And we didn't need so we just closed the exhibition space, but we could continue to work, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. We've just gone into, or about to go into, another full lockdown.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a meeting after this to work out what does that really mean. because they say you have to work from home unless you can't. Well, of course.
Which a gallery can't, yeah.
What does that mean? I think if one doesn't use public transport, if you're able to walk or bicycle, we should be here, but it's still considered a full lockdown.
Yeah.
It's Mark, it's a strange thing, isn't it? Because everybody's talking like they're just going to ignore it, but you know that they're not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think our office has been semi-open for a while for those who need it. But yeah, it's really hard to work out what's going on here most of the time.
Or what you're allowed, actually allowed to. I take a lot of people for lunches to capture them for an hour. And of course, then I was told I wasn't allowed to hang out with anybody who wasn't a member of my family. So I started doing lunches in the gallery.
Yeah.
Because apparently you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it in studios as well, because it's technically an office and technically a work meeting.
That's right, that's right, yeah. If you can have a business meeting in the gallery, you're fine.
Sorry. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you, you're on mute.
Hi, so I'm going to turn off my videos and I'm going to open to everyone.
Okay. So when we see you disappear, that's when we start.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first talk to celebrate the launch of Westbund Online, which opened today. Appropriately, this talk is called Art Across Boundaries, and none of the speakers are actually in Shanghai. But I'm very pleased that we're joined by 3 gallerists with decades of experience in the art market, and also a lot of experience of showing work in China and Asia, and working with both Chinese and Asian artists. The title of the talk is Art Across Boundaries, and I think we're going to look really at how the art market and the art world has changed and how galleries are dealing with various lockdowns and restrictions. I'll introduce the speakers quickly and then we'll get straight to the discussion. Really delighted to be joined by Esther Schipper, who's in Berlin, where her gallery has been since the mid to late 90s, having started in Cologne, and who's showed extensively in China and with Westbund over this time. And with Timothy Taylor, who's based in London and has a gallery there, and also has done a lot of projects and works in China. And also with Boris Vervoordt, who's the founder of Axel Vervoordt Gallery, which is part of the Axel Vervoordt company. And again, has had a long history of working with artists in both Europe, Japan, and Korea, and particularly Zero and Gutai and Tansekwa artists. So I thought we might begin by talking a little bit about how galleries have had to, your galleries in particular, have had to adapt to working increasingly in a digital space and without the ability to travel around, and I guess in some ways for works to circulate quite so easy, and how that's changed the way you operate the gallery and the way you think about artists and also audiences. So Esther, I don't know if you'd like to start with that.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mark. Hello, Tim and Boris. Yes, we were probably very lucky in Berlin because we never really had a very severe lockdown. We had a lockdown in the spring, but we allowed us to continue to go to the office. And it was also not as long as our European neighbors. And then over the summer, Europe opened up quite a bit. So we were able to travel, to visit a lot of our artists, living and working in other European countries. And in September, we had a big gallery weekend with quite some visitors, even from overseas. Now things are slowly closing down again. So yes, I guess that for us we're working with a lot of artists who are also working on immersive experiences, like the exhibition we had when the lockdown started in March was an exhibition by a Spanish-Brazilian artist called Dani Steekman Mangrané. And it was a whole immersive light and sound experience. So bringing that to a digital platform was very, very challenging.
And did that involve suddenly moving to be interested in new technologies and new medias for online?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Although we see that the recipients also need to like to experiment with new media.
Yeah.
It's been an incredible learning curve. We found out that well-made videos and even sometimes very spontaneous Zoom, Skype, or WhatsApp visits are more efficient than to try to work on a very difficult, technically, at the moment, still quite complicated XR experience. I think that we need to, there's a lot of learning to be done on both sides.
And Timothy, have you been working through this period of weird semi-isolation?
Well, we had a rather more serious lockdown at the beginning of the year and really were encouraged not to attend a gallery at all. So we haven't actually done many exhibitions through this entire year. We opened a Kiki Smith show in September to coincide with another Frieze Fair in London, which was attended it at a lull in the extreme elements of this lockdown, and we put that same show online into a viewing room experience, and it was successful, but it doesn't, of course, have any of the energies that you get when you have an audience visiting a show or looking at works. If we'd done this exhibition at the Frieze Fair, which was our original plan, it would have been terribly exciting and people would have loved it. They loved the personality, physicality of the whole thing. And so I wouldn't say we've struggled with the digital side of it. But it's quite difficult to represent an artist really well and efficiently to bring their work to life online, as Esther was saying with her show. And when even a painting exhibition seems to be very, very difficult to bring to life.
Yeah.
So although we have digital exhibition period in the absence of gallery shows, the business itself has concentrated on other things. And we've done a lot more of the general trading in the absence of gallery shows.
We'll come to audiences in a second, but I think, Boris, how's your experience been? Have you suddenly become much more technically savvy?
I think I agree with both Esther and Tim. First of all, I have a hunger for experience art in a space. So I think video, WhatsApp, anything that connects the reality of the collector, the reality of the art experience of the gallery, of being in front in a viewing room from one physical space to another, seems to work much better for me as well than trying to bring it into a virtuality of it. And so for all the virtual shows we've done on the fairs, the most successful ones were the ones that we actually physically installed and could be physically visitable.
Yeah.
And we had the chance of doing that by appointment where we are, and both in Hong Kong and in Belgium, we were able to work by appointment. So that helped the situation. And I do agree with Tim that the buzz that that we miss that kind of buzz of the excitement of an opening, of having lots of people and being excited about Kiki Smith and or another artist, or what that would create would definitely encourage people of looking into that work. But on the other hand, I feel that back in 2019 there was such a fatigue of the buzz as well, and I think the art market also needed some kind of break, change, and somehow in Christmas 19 I was like, oh, I feel something is there's a change needed. Obviously nobody, and definitely not me, had imagined that this would happen. But for sure, I think the fact that there is a lack of buzz also makes people more grounded, look more in depth, are really in search of doing something meaningful as a collector, as part of initiating something in the art world.
And do you have the current Westbund online viewing room show installed?
We installed that one in our gallery in Hong Kong. So it's still difficult, of course, the connection from Shanghai to Hong Kong, but we felt it was the closest we could get to with a physical space this time, and having attendance of our own team.
Yeah, and do you find that helps when you're constructing the online viewing room experience to sort of also have it mapped out physically?
It definitely helps the visuality of it through video and images. It allows you to contextualize any curated vision that a stand should have. I think it's more excited that a stand is a curated vision rather than just hanging some inventory. And so I think it's much more meaningful for the artists involved.
And Esther, how do you approach curating something for an online viewing room? Is it about the artists or the audience, or?
Again, I think it's a very straightforward learning curve. We started the first online viewing room we participated at was obviously the Art Basel Hong Kong. Here we already had selected works for the fair, as we do that way in advance. So we brought them one-to-one to the platform, realizing that this was not the best of all ideas, because the way you watch it is very, very different than the way you kind of approach art on a booth. So we've been trying the thematical aspect or the one-person presentation aspect. I think that slowly I agree with Boris that probably the most successful of what we did was really for Art Basel, when we installed the booth we had planned in our gallery space, and we had like basically the online platform, but also the physical platform that we could invite the collectors to come and visit the show, either in person if they were in Germany, or via Zoom or Skype or whatever other video communication devices works.
Yeah. And Tim, how has it been for you in that regard, in terms of planning what you're going to show in an online situation? I mean, I guess you've probably had the gallery shut for longer or inaccessible for longer than Esther, for sure.
Given the limitations of the digital kind of opportunity, I have to say we've tried to put things online that we thought people wanted to see. So your question was it about the artists or was it about the audience? I mean, for us, I think our view was that you've got a very particular type of audience or a very limited type of medium, let's say. So you need to put things there that people want to see. And if you have a commercial view to the whole thing, you put in things that people want to see and hopefully want to buy. I think it's a very difficult medium to introduce anything new or actually to introduce new work by a particular artist because they just can't experience it properly. So a rather more crass way of viewing it, I'm afraid.
But I remember before the current situation, and particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, being in various curatorial meetings or listening to curators saying in a lot of their shows, they were looking for that WeChat moment or that Instagram moment. That was something that a lot of institutions started talking about within an exhibition. How do you replicate that online? Is it possible to do that online? Maybe start with Esther.
I'm not sure I really understand what you mean.
So I think when you enter the exhibition, that sort of, how's it going to look like on a photo that's shared on social media or a video on social media? So there's already a consideration for an audience that would view exhibitions through social media as opposed to in real life, and how the images would be distributed through social media. So definitely I've been in institutional meetings where people have said, where's the public relations department have said, where's the Instagram or WeChat moment in this exhibition? It's really important.
I think especially Instagram became for us much more important than it was.
Yeah.
We're communicating much more. What we also really see, which has a lot of success, is the Instagram live talks.
Yeah. Weirdly
enough, there are not so many people participating in the live moment, but afterwards, there's this idea of immediacy. I think even if they're not consumed as quickly as we send them out, it's felt to be really important.
Yeah. And is that your experience too, Boris?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. It feels, it's the realness of the live moment. It's the realness of anticipating on your question earlier was, I brought during confinement and the more unknown Belgian artists, I tended to go to the studio, meet up with them, make some photographs, make some little films, bring some pieces to my home, share them from there, and kind of somehow kept them also in the picture and kept them alive I felt that during the first lockdown, the informality of that helped a lot, and it ensured that they all had income. That was kind of my first worry, was like, oh God, how long is this going to take? And for these artists that are not so successful, that don't have the means to survive very long without any sales, we needed to make sure that these were happening.
Yeah. Has that been experienced too, Timothy?
Yeah, I agree with what I particularly about this power of Instagram. You know, there is something very immediate about that. So if you're doing these online shows and simple for reasons with or with job from a studio or something that represents the artist, your consideration for the work through some social media place, I think is very important.
Yes, as that's obviously some art is great for Instagram. Some art.
It was so new when we got hit by this thing that I don't think that the artists or the gallery, well, I didn't really know how to deal with it at all. I mean, it's so absolute, it was such a block that you know, the inability to go to an artist studio, my inability to travel into Europe even for all of these months mostly, has been very inhibiting. It's only now that we're beginning to understand and certainly work with artists in terms of presenting what they've been making and trying to bring that to life. And talk about it. I mean, for me, it's much more about trying to drag people into the gallery.
Yeah.
You know, it's really, you know, that's what I spend all day trying to do. And even if it's a 1-1-1 thing, that's how I'm keeping it alive.
Yeah.
Social media and indeed the online viewing rooms very much support that. But it's about still trying to be in front of people and put them in front of the world.
Yeah. Esther, I wonder if you think this is a change that's going to be permanent in terms of looking at how the digital media can support the activities of the gallery. Is it something that's going to last just until mobility is unrestricted?
I guess we are kind of accumulating a lot of knowledge. We certainly would not have spent time on trying to get through if this didn't happen. So I do think that we will be continuing probably having very different platforms on which we're presenting ourselves. I mean, for us, also the whole part in writing become much more important than it used to be.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Yeah.
We see that we start to I mean, when I started the gallery more than 30 years ago, writing letters was one of the biggest tools we had to sell, besides like talking in person with somebody. And that got, especially the last 10 years, lost completely. And if you reach out to people now and you might have had a phone call and you want to kind of re-emphasize on what you've been talking, you really need to be able to write beautiful letters so that this comes across well. It's not like, oh, it is also, you know, it's not like digitalization came up to us like suddenly this year. Used to sell a lot of work digitally just by people coming on fair booth wanting us to send similar works. You would send links, you would send images from other things, and that's how the conversation continued. Now we see that we have to get back to sometimes of much more traditional ways, as I say, in writing. We have also a person at the gallery who writes what we call these letters from Berlin, who tells what we've been doing, what we've been concentrating on. I think that there are like a lot of different aspects to it, which I wish we will continue to develop even beyond this this pandemic moment.
And Boris, I wonder if this moment has also changed the way you think about participation in art fairs in terms of a balance between for real and online and digital. There are obviously issues of environmental responsibility attached to that that are becoming more and more prevalent in the discussion. But I wonder if this experience, you talked about a sort of slowing down and a break, has changed the way you'll approach things whenever we get to such a moment as things go back to some sort of normal.
I don't think you can assume that there will be no more pandemics in the decennia that will come. So I think this is kind of part of, I somewhere in June, I woke up and decided that this was going to be part of the rest of my life. And so it's all about adapting to that. And I think the next step is how fairs can also adapt to that, and how the regionality can become a strength again. And so fairs need to really be grounded in its locality. And I don't think we'll come back to a world where people travel to I don't know, 10, 15 fairs a year as a collector. I think you answering to the previous question, I've been doing a lot of outreach actually, and going to see clients with works. And within the European Union, you actually have the right, transport never stopped, even during the strictest confinement. So I would take the van and with a driver, and we would just go visit people with works. I came a few times to London, Tim, so it is possible.
Okay, that's put me to shame. I don't.
You need to buy a
So
van.
you fill in a European form of a bill of loading bill, and you go on the van, and off you go. And it takes me 5.5 hours to London. It takes me 3 hours to Paris, and I've been going around.
But Boris, are you classified as a shipper to do that?
We have our.
Or
You don't need to. You don't need to. If you have a VAT number, you can make this paperwork.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's interesting you're talking about this idea of the regional as well, and this being
And outreach together. It's
more...
two. I think fairs need to become tomorrow. The fair of tomorrow needs to be the fair which is very locally grounded and has a lot of outreach. And I must say that Westbund has always been doing that for us. We've never expected to find a collector from home in Shanghai to sell them something. You know, that's not why we came all the way there.
So what kind of outreach do you do for a fair like Westbund in this situation? Are you doing a lot of things on WeChat, or how are you connecting with the audience?
For me, a lot of WeChat with people I've met over the years, and keeping them motivated. And obviously, it's also frustrating for them now that they can't see their works physically, yeah. But that's,
and so in some ways, does the online
reality
platform become a way of starting discussions as much as it is straightforwardly of selling?
I think it's more about the momentum a platform creates. It's like now you have to decide because now this fair is happening, kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so it's allowing the conversation to start. That's what a fair really does today.
Yeah. And Esther, how about you in terms of specifically reaching Chinese audiences? You have staff who speak Chinese, who use WeChat.
Exactly.
Does the fair itself become a sort of conversation moment for people? And can you introduce them to works that aren't visible on the platform, to kind of a richer series of works that are within the inventory and the gallery's sort of holdings?
I mean, we're just at the beginning. So this is what we wish to do, yes. We have our Chinese-speaking staff who is preparing this moment, and I'm curious to see if this is all going to work out the way we're planning it.
Yeah. So I guess to everyone who's watching and listening, I guess this is a way that you can also become part of the conversation by getting in touch with all of the people in this conversation too, to start these discussions about the work. Tim, you've done a lot of work in China. What kind of programs or initiatives do you have for kind of maintaining contact with an audience in China?
Well, a colleague of mine is presently sitting in a hotel quarantining for another 3 or 4 days, and then she'll be let loose in the country. And in the absence of being able to attend the fair properly, she's really acting as the gallery representative, and hopefully seeing many of the people that we would like to have seen if we'd actually been there at the fair. I think it's a bit of a compromise, but not being able to do it. But hopefully, in another year, things will be different, and we'll definitely return. I love it. I think exactly as Boris said. It's a completely new experience every time you go, and it's always enlightening. You always meet extraordinary new people, and they're curious and interested, and have an interest in a conversation, and then that feeds through into the rest of the year. And this colleague is going there to see the various clients that we've met over the years that want to talk about the stuff we show in the absence of our booth.
Yeah, and I guess you missed that one-to-one discussion on the booth.
Well, yeah, that's why we do the fairs. I think it's really where you meet a great many of the really enthusiastic people. And it's a great shame not to be there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in terms of the audience as well, I was wondering how you all keep in touch with what's going on in the art world, what new developments are happening, because I think in some ways within China, Westbund has always been a platform in which these things can be showcased or happened, and it's not just always about what an individual gallery is doing, but the conversations that happen between artworks and therefore artists who are working with different galleries within this big exhibition hall. And I think it might be interesting to hear how you're all trying to sort of stay abreast of what's happening, and what are you looking at and how are you looking at it? Maybe Esther, you could start.
I'm definitely myself also looking at much more things online. On the other hand, I have to admit that I'm also really focusing on much more local things happening. So I do much more artist studio visits in Berlin. I kind of like try to reach out much more to my local base. I have to say that in the last years, we did about 10, 12 fairs a year. Then we had all the artists having exhibitions all over the world. So I've been mostly traveling and be very little present in Berlin. So it's maybe I'm losing a bit of the more international kind of talk and thoughts about what happens, but I'm much more involved in what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, it's noticeable in the online platform that you all have pictures or representations of your home gallery spaces present there too. Boris, how are you keeping in touch with everything? Are you constantly glued to a computer screen?
No, it's a good balance. I've never taken so much time to go to the gym or go running or just to stay fresh and awake, because spending a day behind the computer also just at some point you don't see things anymore. But it's every possible way of connecting with somebody out there, whether it's an artist or a collector, and find the chord that touches them, and have the human aspect of the relationship come forward, rather than just sending over information, which is pointless.
Do you think it's pointless?
Just the purely informative is doesn't reach. There's oversaturation of that. We are all getting way too much information all the time, and so if you want to strike a chord, you need to go into somebody's heart and really touch them. And definitely good letters help to that, great images help to that, good video helps to that, from one space to another. We are all human beings, and we are united with a passion for art, and that's what we need to convey.
Yeah.
Not the Amazon part of just selling it.
Yeah. But maybe going back to that, even though you're moving us away from it, one of the things that's been, I guess, commented on a lot in terms of online viewing platforms is the prices of work being visible, or at least a price for the work being visible. Do you think that additional level of information is helpful in terms of conversations? Is it a good thing? It always used to be less transparent in some ways. I wonder if that just makes things easier and clearer. Tim, do you have thoughts?
Yeah,
on
I
that?
definitely think it does. I mean, I think it as much as we want to connect with those that are interested in something, I've found over the years, if you're online in the middle of the night looking at things, writing emails, whatever, you send an email to somebody, they nearly always reply instantly. It's kind of amazing. And it's the same thing, if somebody's in a viewing room and they're looking to see the price of something because they're genuinely interested in it. Yeah. As if they walked in a gallery and said, what's the price of that? They should have it. I mean, it's just have it. And then you can follow up if they want to give you their email address, whatever, you can follow up and you can see where to take the conversation further. But I definitely think that's extremely important in, firstly, being open and transparent about what you're doing, but also making it easy for people to participate properly. To send an email saying, oh yeah, we'll get back to you at some point when, you know, on Monday, it's like by then the whole thing's over anyway. So.
Yeah. Esther, do you think that's something that's been a healthy change?
I think that since the world got global and digitalized, the price transparency has to be part of a gallery politics. I mean, if we are sharing artists with other dealers, the prices have always to be the same. You have to be very careful. I mean, that, so it doesn't really, for us, it doesn't really change much that on some of these platforms, we make the prices public. It's, it also sometimes helps because people might have other ideas about prices than the real prices are.
Yeah.
So it happens that you suddenly have a lot of inquiries for work which are probably far beyond in price than people might imagine, or the other way around, that people think that yeah, it's a good way sort of to start a conversation when you know that the person you're communicated with has an idea about what you're talking.
Yeah. And Boris, do you think this is something that's speeded things up, or?
I think it makes people come more to the point. I think it's one of the worst experiences you can have visiting a gallery is actually falling in love and then having the disappointment you can't afford it. And that's the worst, and you never see it, that collector back. They feel so embarrassed they wouldn't come back. So if in an online world, and actually I think probably in the gallery very soon, you indicate the price sooner, then people know how much they can go into appreciating something and enjoying the beauty and the visit of the gallery, or saying, I want this. And it allows them, yeah, to strike a balance on that.
Yeah.
So we indicate prices everywhere.
Yeah. And I think maybe one final question, like I said, Westbund has this history of introducing audiences to new types of contemporary art. Do you think that this is still possible through online platforms, or does it become more complicated? Maybe Esther could start with that.
I think it really depends on what type of works.
Yeah.
I think that there are works which are working online better than others. Photographic works, film-based work is sometimes easier to talk, present online than, as I said earlier, a very deep sensorial, immersive experience. I mean, we took on working with new artists this year, and it is, it seems that as people also, not only us, but also our audience and clients have more time to look at things online and study, it has for some artists been also kind of a good start that people were able to kind of look more closely at things.
Yeah. And I had an interesting experience last week where I was recreating a 5-channel video work on 3 computer screens. So I sort of have the feeling also that I'm becoming an installer of sorts too.
Yeah.
Tim, I wonder how you feel about introducing new artists into the mix right now. Is that a difficult thing?
Given what I said earlier, I would have to say that I think it's a challenging media, as Esther has said. It really depends what it is. If something is in multiple, maybe that is something that's easier. If something is perhaps at a lower price threshold, that might be easier. But it's really about how do you communicate the essence of this object or this visual experience. And when you're looking at a computer screen, you know, in another country, that's very difficult. You know, it's very, very difficult. And there's also this. It's quite difficult to. I think this was a term Boris used earlier, but it's quite difficult to really to really represent the originality of that experience. I don't know, I'm not sure that it's possible just yet.
Yeah.
And so I can't say that I'm the most progressive when it comes to trying to do it.
Yeah.
I think commenting on that it's a combination of what you've both said, Esther and Tim. Today we need to also concentrate on our local audience and the regionality of that. And I feel that introducing a new artist today needs to be much more done like it was done in the old days, and an artist needs to become part of the scene and known into the realm of the gallery itself, and Berlin, for example, is an excellent example of that. And I think the globalized world expected an artist to be suddenly from like unknown to known globally, and that's such a leap to make that it's impossible. And I think what this has taught me, and maybe many others, is that we need to build an artist first in our local audience, grow it from there, and then maybe a colleague visits that regionality of a gallery, sees this artist, brings it to there, builds it in that region, and it's much more done like it was done in the 60s and 70s when galleries started to emerge in being there as a platform for contemporary art, and so we need to embrace that again, the slowness of that.
Yeah, I think that's a nice thought, and possibly a nice thought on which to leave the discussion in terms of maybe the new digital reality being a reality check for reality itself. I'd like to thank you all for joining us, all the speakers, and also the audience for listening. You can check out all the booths online at Westbund's platform, and I hope you do so. That's opened now already. And those of you who are visiting the fair, I hope you have a great experience. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Tim and Esther. Great to see you back here.
Yes. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.